Prey, underrated game, explored. We're going to talk about a game, Prey. It's all about identity that's disguised as a first-person shooter today. Developed by Arkane Studios, the same studio that brought you Dishonored. It has a comparable ancestry, even if the genes it expresses aren't the same. Prey takes its cue from House Looking Glass's other child, System Shock, where Dishonored looked to the Thief series for inspiration. As a result, the game becomes more of a systems-driven adventure, with stages being replaced with a genuine, linked space station afflicted by extraterrestrial power. Prey struggles to make the greatest case for itself when it appears to be most influenced by contemporary first-person gaming principles, but it's something far less often and far more successful when Prey opens up enough to raise questions with no clear solutions and let you uncover its riddles. A luxurious sci-fi space playground. The game begins with protagonist Morgan Yu, whose gender you choose before the game begins, waking up on the space station Talos 1 to a bizarre nightmare. I won't go into much detail regarding the idea because the way the game begins and evolves in the early stages is crucial to its long-term appeal. Morgan's traits may be customized, and the player can make decisions that affect the game's plot. Morgan must acquire and use weapons and resources aboard the station to combat the typhoon in order to survive. Although Prey is not an open-world game, it does have open-world level gameplay, comparable to Arkane's Dishonored. Prey develops a concept that puts into question your faith in the characters you encounter, as well as your own view of what's going on. Prey appears to be inspired by films such as Solaris and writers such as Philip K. Dick, yet the implementation brilliantly exploits Prey's participatory character. It's a richly detailed universe based on an alternate history of the space race that resulted in an intricate orbiting station with artificial gravity, where touchscreen computers coexist with film projectors and rotary telephones. You'll love piecing together the story in parts and pieces from news stories and details on the loading screens. This, combined with the fact that you'll be rewarded for picking up basically any piece of beneficial gear or actual trash thanks to a cartoonish recycling system that allows you to turn even old banana skins into raw material for manufacturing weapons and upgrades, might very well make you eager to turn over every metaphorical rock on Talos 1. This is tricky since some of those inert things are really camouflaged facehugger style aliens that will surprise you by showing themselves and attempting to eat your face off when you go too near.
It's empty.
Because almost everything on Talos 1 is meticulously laid out in a way that, for the most part, makes sense, the presence of these mimics gives all of the investigation a looming sense of anxiety. You have to question why objects are placed where they are, which works because almost everything on Talos 1 is diligently laid out in a way that, for the most part, makes sense. It lays all sorts of horrible traps for you, such as when one of what looks to be 2 vital health packs turns out to be a predator waiting for an injured prey. Prey follows in the footsteps of classic first-person RPGs like System Shock 2 and the original Deus Ex in terms of mechanics, and incorporates some of their greatest concepts. There are 6 separate skill trees to build your character, as well as modular upgrading systems for both your spacesuit and scope. There are enough important selections to make your version of Dr. Morgan Yu, who, interestingly, may be either a guy or a woman, depending on your whim, feel like your own, and personalized to your playstyle. With all of those possibilities, and not enough upgrade goods to go around, the majority of the powers don't feel very unique, since talents like improved strength, repair skill, the capacity to manipulate items or kill with your thoughts, and even the ability to revive the dead to fight for you have all been in recent games. Prey is distinguished by its flexible, semi-open world level design, which allows you to achieve objectives in a variety of ways, depending on your skills. One character build could explore ways to overcome locked doors by hacking into computer terminals, while another would use brute force to open doors or remove barriers. and still. Another might just examine the area until they locate the passcode scrawled on a post-it note someplace. Your primary objective, as well as the numerous side tasks that may stretch the life of Prey from 15 to 20 hours to 40 or 50, will bring you back and forth through the same somewhat diversified zones again, but you will not get tired of it because usually you will have to unlock new abilities to access new nooks and crannies since the last time you had been there. The Typhoon, Prey's extraterrestrial threat, is capable of imitating different forms in the gaming environment, and they do it in an unstructured manner. Anything you observe on Talos 1 might be a ruse used by an adversary. Even item pickups are dangerous, and unless you have some special gear later in the game, there's no way to know for sure unless you strike an object or risk picking it up. Other, less subtle foes exist, enemies that are more deadly while also being sadder. When I eventually met some live, breathing folks and learned about their problems, I was first dismayed by the lack of dialogue options for determining the result of their missions, but then I realized Prey has a different approach. You're assigned a mission, such as saving or murdering someone, and your choices define your moral standing. Do you save a group of individuals who are being attacked, or do you leave them to die? Do you seek vengeance against the man who murdered a survivor's partner, or do you let him live? Is it better to murder mind-controlled people, or to discover a means to set them free? It's a more fascinating and subtle yet active approach than just declaring whether you're good or bad. It's refreshing to see action speak louder than words in RPG morality. You'll face a number of challenges as you go through Talos 1, but Arkane has included a detailed skill tree system that lets you spend points, although in an effective and horrifically anchored way in Prey's premise, to unlock new powers. Some are battle-related, such as strange supernatural talents ranging from stealth to direct fighting. Others, on the other hand, are more adventurous. Weapon ammunition isn't precisely rare, and you can always produce more, but it's easy to run out at inconvenient times. This was occasionally instructive. Experimenting with less obvious techniques often provided unexpected outcomes. However, Prey sometimes requires you to utilize more powerful equipment. If you run out at the wrong moment, you'll almost certainly be slaughtered. This level of difficulty is terrific for imparting a sense of risk and danger, and when combined with an aggressive, outstanding music, Prey succeeds in generating an eerie, scary atmosphere. Combat may be harsh for most of the game, but it's sprinkled throughout at a reasonable pace. It's thrilling without being taxing, and it doesn't get in the way of the cycle of discovering, learning, and experimenting. Through the station's design and the stories discovered therein, I received a good sense of Talos 1 as a working environment. Everything fits into the ecosystem, even the crew quarters where people may relax and play pen and paper RPGs. There's a server room, an IT department, a medical facility, and even an HR department. There's a sense that this was a location where people lived and worked away from the darker, more ominous regions dedicated to odd research. It also looks fantastic, with a modern Art Deco facade that transitions to a more typical utilitarian space station design in restricted regions. There is a rather linear crucial path to follow, which requires you to travel to specific spots, typically along a predetermined route. Backtracking is encouraged by the many side quests and mysteries, and there are a lot of shortcuts and other ways to make it simpler and more fascinating. The central lift, for example, connects the Talos 1 lobby's two major hubs and the elegantly planned Arboretum. Alternatively, there's the Guts, a zero-gravity conduit that also serves as a mode of transit for aliens and semi-terrified scientists. You can also go to an airlock and float out into the space around the station's outside, which is possibly the finest option. This is often the most tranquil portion of the game, similar to the underwater passages of BioShock 2. It's pleasant because the alien population is minimal, which is unusual for the station core. Typhoons are a diverse bunch, with each possessing unique abilities and attacks. Mimics, which take on the appearance of neighboring physical items only to attack you as you approach, are sadly the most numerous. In principle, it's a nice concept, but in fact, it's an opponent created around cheap jump scares, complete with loud, generic horror sound effects. They're nothing more than a regular nuisance after only a few hours, which is made worse by the fact that they're also irritating to combat. The more unknowingly foreign the aliens appear, the creepier they get. Because phantoms are roughly humanoid, they act like standard grunts, tough but not scary. The telepaths, technopaths, and weavers hover above them, all strange floating entities that might terrify you. Prey has become a hassle due to the existence of mimics. Many of the other foes, on the other hand, contribute to the tense mood that develops as you explore the station, and intensifies when the typhoons take root in different regions. I mean, the mimics are not bad. They are just a tad bit irritating after a point of time. I recommend taking the time to finish some of the side quests you'll find as a consequence of prior messages, as well as those provided by survivors you'll encounter along the route. It's easy to feel that the rewards for completing such tasks aren't worth the work, especially when you consider how much you can just make up. However, several have a big payoff narratively, and certain objectives feed into the post-credits closing scene, which ties together many of Prey's ideas into an ambitious, if not entirely satisfactory, climax. Marvelous Gamer's Verdict. We believe Prey is one of the best games that came out in 2017 and is very underrated, even if it occasionally relies too hard on its least intriguing features. Arkane has the courage to let Prey conclude on its own terms. Prey is simply competent when it appears to be a shooter. Prey is a very effective archaeological expedition, and it manages to compellingly meditate on what it means to be a mystery, a deep space haunted house with hundreds of stories of sorrow and humanity to tell. So definitely you could give this game a shot. If you liked the video, do give it a like and share it with your pals. If you can think of any other game that you want us to review, then do let us know in the comments, and do subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.